Hello, my name is Seth. Welcome to Introduction to Programming. In the first chapter, we'll explore how you can communicate with your computer and what that all means. So as humans, we communicate with each other using language, and there are lots of different languages, like French, English, Spanish, Chinese, and many others. They all have one common purpose, however, to pass ideas, questions, and commands from one person to another. If I speak in English and you speak in Spanish, I must translate my words to Spanish if I expect you to understand what I'm saying. In computer programming, the communication happens between you, the programmer, and a computer. If you want to instruct the computer to do something, you must translate your instructions to the language a computer will understand. Now, there are many different languages available that you can use, just as there are many human languages. Popular computer languages include C, C++, Java, Python, PHP, Ruby, JavaScript, and many others. There are actually a lot of different factors to consider when picking a language to use for a particular project, but it's not important to understand all of the differences right now. For now, we will focus on learning one language, JavaScript. The nice thing about programming is that once you learn one language, it is very easy to learn another, and another, and another. JavaScript is a great language to start with because it is very widely used. Almost every website on the internet uses JavaScript, and there are a lot of job opportunities for JavaScript programmers in the market today. Now, if someone asks you, "Can you please open the door?" your brain processes the sounds and translates them to a thought that you can understand and respond to. Computers also have a brain. Actually, we might say that they have many brains. A JavaScript engine is the brain they use to understand what we are saying when we speak in JavaScript. There are different JavaScript engines. For example, each web browser has their own JavaScript engine. The engine in Internet Explorer is different from the engine in Firefox, which is different from the engine in Chrome. Computer programmers like to come up with clever names for their projects, and so each of these engines has a special code name. The Internet Explorer JavaScript engine is called Chakra. The Chrome JavaScript engine is called V8, and the Firefox engine is called SpiderMonkey. At this point, it's not really important to understand the precise differences between each of these engines. Just be aware that they exist and understand that you can send the same JavaScript code to each of these engines, and the results or output will be very similar. To talk with the computer brain, or a JavaScript engine in our case, we must input code. Now, the code must follow a specific format that the engine can understand and parse. Over the next few chapters, we will use the REPL.it website, which allows us to type in code, send it to the engine, and see what the response is. In this screenshot, you can see how you might use this site. On the left-hand side, you would type in code. On the right-hand side, you would see output. When we say run the code, we really mean send the code as input to the JavaScript engine. When we say check the output, we really mean see what response the JavaScript engine returned from your input. Here's an example of us asking a question on the left and getting a response from the JavaScript engine on the right. So we might say, what is 2 plus 2? Now, the JavaScript engine will parse that statement and then return a response. In this case, 4, which is the answer to 2 plus 2. So in reality, we actually represent this in JavaScript code as an expression, which is shown here. Now this entire line of code, 2 plus 2 semicolon, is an expression. The semicolon ends the expression. The plus symbol is what's known as an arithmetic operator. And the 2's are what are called values. Now we say this expression evaluates, once executed, to the value of 4. We can use JavaScript to ask this question and actually assign it to a value. So here we are using the same expression we saw previously, 2 plus 2 semicolon, but now that's on the right hand side of this statement, and the full statement is var sum equals 2 plus 2. So once again, the expression is on the right hand side. The equal sign is what's called an assignment operator, which means we're assigning the value of this expression to something else, which is in fact a variable called sum, which is the identifier of the variable. And when we start this statement, we use the var, V-A-R keyword to declare to the JavaScript engine that we are defining a new variable. So now that we've crafted that statement, the expression sum would evaluate to 4 because we've assigned the result of 2 plus 2 to the variable sum. If we want to, we can assign a new value to our variable. So notice that we did not need to use the var keyword again on line 2. That is only needed the first time we define a variable. So we first had var sum equals 2 plus 2, and next sum equals 4 plus 10. So now sum is equal to 14. So you might have noticed on the right hand side we have this double slash followed by the text sum now equals 14. So the double forward slash is used to indicate the start of what's called a comment. So comments are used to help explain the code to humans when they read it. However, these comments are ignored by the JavaScript engine. So we can even use the variable to form a new expression. So here on line 3, we're taking our variable sum and adding 10 to it. And now this expression, sum plus 10, will evaluate to 24. So notice that the JavaScript engine simply executes each line of code in order. So first we had our initial statement where we said var sum equals 2 plus 2, so sum would equal 4. And then we reassign to the variable sum with line 2 saying sum equals 4 plus 10, so now sum equals 14. And then we simply craft the expression sum plus 10, which would essentially be 14, which is the value of sum, plus 10, and thus would evaluate to 24. We could also use the variable in reassigning to the variable. So in this case, we're saying sum equals sum plus 10. So now, the value of sum, after all of this code executes, would be 24. So there are actually several other common operators in addition to the arithmetic operator we've been using that are very useful to understand. First we have 10 minus 6, which would evaluate to 4. 10 times 4 evaluates to 40. And 10 divided by 2 would evaluate to 5. And these are fairly familiar, probably, if you've done any sort of math or algebra in school. So you have your subtraction operator, which subtracts two numbers, multiplication operator, and division operator. Alright, so let's pause here and do a quick review. What are the values in this expression? Well, as we recall, the values are simply the numbers that are involved. So 1, 45, 10, and 20 would be the values. The plus symbols are the operators which instruct the JavaScript engine to add these values together. Alright, so in this example, what does the expression shown evaluate to? So when we say evaluate the expression, it really just means have the JavaScript engine execute the expression and return the value which it resolves to. So 99 plus 1 would be 100, plus 10 would be 110. So we could say this expression evaluates to the value of 110. Alright, now let's look at this one. What does this expression evaluate to? Well, it's kind of a trick question. It actually doesn't evaluate at all because of the double forward slash which start the line. So since we have this double forward slash, as you might recall, that indicates to the JavaScript engine that this is a comment and thus should be completely ignored. This one's a little bit trickier. First, we're declaring a variable called cans, and we're assigning it to the expression 2 plus 10. Next, we're declaring a new variable and setting it to the value of 2 plus cans minus 10 minus cans. So essentially what you would do is just simply substitute the word cans with whatever the value of cans is, which in this case is 12. So you end up with 2 plus 12 minus 10 minus 12, which evaluates to -8. Alright, so let's take a look at a few simple homework assignments that should help you reinforce some of these concepts that we've been talking about. So in the first assignment, simply write a JavaScript expression which adds 5 to 10. Now the expression should evaluate to 15. You can use the REPL.it website that we were talking about earlier to write and execute your code. Homework number 2. Define 3 variables. One should hold your age, one should hold your favorite number, and one should hold the number of siblings you have. Next, define a variable which stores the result of adding the previous 3 variables together. Homework number 3. Define a variable to hold the number of hours in a day. Now multiply this value by 7 to get the number of hours in a week. Assign this to a new variable. Next, multiply this by the number of weeks in a year and assign the result of this in a new variable. Finally, divide this number by the number of days in a year. What is the result?